Hi, my name is Chase Byer, and today I'm going to be talking about my informed speech on fly fishing and what all it's really about. After doing some research and being that I also do a lot of fly fishing myself, I became very familiar with fly fishing, and I hope to explain to y'all what it's actually about and kind of a little bit where it came from. Fly fishing offers a huge variety of different styles of fishing that everybody can enjoy. Now, a lot of people don't know much about fly fishing because it isn't the most popular style of fishing out there. The most people think fly fishing you can just do in your mountain streams or small rivers, but fly fishing is actually a lot more than that. You can actually do it in both freshwater and saltwater. Believe it or not, fly fishing has been around a lot longer than we think. It actually dates back to 200 AD when people first started to realize that fish were attracted to eating flies that would land on top of the water. A guy named Aline is supposedly the first guy to ever try this method out. Now, the first actual written method of fly fishing dates back all the way to the Romans fly fishing out of the Astaris River. According to John Perry from the Montana Fly Fishing Club, they were even using flies and tying red wool around two feathers to make their own bait, basically. They then had around a 6 foot pole or rod as well as a 6 foot line they would tie their bait to. And as this started to catch on, people became very more interested, and it soon became popular because people were realizing that they could actually catch fish without getting a lot of bait, and they were making their own bait, and it's a lot more kind of efficient. Back when fly fishing first started out, there wasn't a whole lot of types of equipment because they kind of had to make do from what they had and make their own bait and rods and reels as well. And but now fly fishing, there's endless combinations of type of gear that you can use, rods, reels, lines. There's tons of it out there. Now that we kind of have a little bit of history of where it came from, let's talk about how it's like grown to be what it is today. A very popular sport. The only reason fly fishing is very different from others, I think, is because most your traditional fishing you use live bait as such, and with fly fishing you use artificial bait, and it's kind of a lot more difficult, and you kind of have to be a lot more skilled. There are two common types of baits when fly fishing. You have your dry flies and your wet flies. Your dry flies are the kind of more go-to type of fly for most people. A lot more exciting to use for me personally because you can see the fish actually strike at the fly, other than a wet fly, which actually goes into the water, and you don't really you can see it, but you don't really get the feel as you would using a dry fly. Dry flies, they basically sit on top of the water and they act like something that has fallen off the trees or something that's kind of just floating down to the stream. But when using the dry flies, you're kind of more prone to um, seeing where the fly actually lands, so you can get a better cast out, I think. One of the downsides about using a dry fly, though, is only 20% of the time fish feed from the surface, according to Clint Luce on his article about the basic types of fly fishing. Although using dry flies while fly fishing seem very popular, wet flies are just as popular. It all really depends on like what kind of fish you're going for and what season it kind of is. Wet flies have been around for 2,000 years and has been the primary method for catching trout. Unlike dry flies, wet flies can be fished anywhere on the stream because they kind of go with the current. They go down the current. They can sink. They go pretty much wherever you honestly want them to go. The only bad thing about using wet flies is you have to be more skilled. You have to know where the current's flowing. You have to know where the fish are. But both types are great uses, and it honestly just comes down to what you like using the best and what you feel like you can catch the most fish out of. Now let's talk about the different styles of fly fishing itself. Everybody knows that the most common style is freshwater, and that contains most of your mountains, streams, and rivers, as well as lakes that a lot of people are starting to kind of get more involved with because it used to not be that big of a trend, but now it's a lot of people are starting to do it, and it's become very popular. Also, you have saltwater fly fishing. It uses the same gear but you're using basically a thicker line that's more weighted, and because you want that bait to sink a lot quicker than it does in your normal freshwater fly fishing. Um, a different thing about saltwater is you got to be used to setting the hook. That's a lot different because you're in freshwater, you're setting the hook by the pulling on the top of the rod, and with saltwater, you're using the actual line itself and pulling on that. Um, in saltwater fly fishing, you need to kind of get a feel for what kind of fish you're gonna be fishing for, and know what they like. Is they as freshwater is a lot different. They use different types of baits. It's all honestly depending on what type of fish you're fishing for. Both are really enjoyable, but it comes down to what you really like doing the best. Last but not least, we'll talk about the equipment used for fly fishing. You really just have a long rod that's about 8 to 10 feet, even bigger sometimes depending on what type of fish you're doing. The reason for having such a big rod is so that you can get those long casts down the river, wherever you're using it. The reel is kind of still the same concept, but it's a lot more compact, so you can fit that bigger, thicker line on there and still be able to reel it in. The line is probably the most important gear when fly fishing because it's a lot thicker and heavier, and you need that heavier line to throw out that fly when you're, using fly when you're fly fishing, because that fly only weighs so much, and it's not enough to actually get the bait out to where you need. Fly fishing has been around a very long time, of course. Back when it first started, people would honestly make their own fly fishing line out of braided horsehair. This is just some of the basic information about fly fishing. There's much more to understand, but you can only really understand it if you try it out yourself. And I hope everybody enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching. Thanks.